Queens. J.D.
Well, Roslyn, Long Island Railroad says the conductor threw this train into an emergency stop up here on these raised tracks here in Rochdale. They're express tracks, but it was not enough. 2 men were injured, one of them killed actually, another is in critical condition tonight, and detectives are trying to figure out what they were doing up on these tracks in the first place. The trains run through this Rochdale neighborhood on a raised line at 80 miles an hour. This is not a place to play on the tracks. But apparently that's exactly what 2 young men were doing tonight when they were hit by the 814 train out of Long Beach, headed westbound to Flatbush.
We found 2 patients that had in fact been struck by Long Island Railroad. They had significant trauma. 1 patient was deceased on the scene and pronounced by the paramedics. The other patient had significant head trauma.
Exactly what these men were doing on the track is not known, but a witness says he believes they were not alone.
So 4 guys running from the train tracks. They looked like they were running for their lives.
And had you heard a train before that?
Yeah.
Well, the 814 with its 50 passengers aboard finally resumed its trip about 20 after 10. Neighbors say this was an accident waiting to happen.
The boys, they're usually up there. They play up there all the time. Every summer you see them. They run up there. They go up this way or they go up on Baisley. There's an empty lot on Baisley, and they go up there and they play and they run across the tracks. You can see them all the time. And I constantly tell my children, you see that? Don't you ever do that.
Good advice, apparently not heeded by these 2 men. Now, residents say they do not recall an accident like this in memory in this area, but they do say there are other problems with the kids up on the tracks, namely that they're throwing rocks down in their houses, breaking their windows. They hope the Long Island Railroad can seal these tracks. They say this is a tragedy, but not one that was unexpected, at least to them. We're live in the Rochdale section of Queens tonight. J.D. Dapper, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
This is Channel 2 News Sunday.
Good evening, I'm Cindy Hsu.
And I'm Reggie Harris. Getting to the hospital as quickly as possible is crucial when your life is on the line, but an exclusive Channel 2 News investigation has found that ambulances don't always take the most direct route depending on which hospital they work for. Marcia Kramer reports on what some are calling medical bounty hunters.
This ambulance is rushing to the scene of an emergency. And you'd think when it gets there, the paramedics would rush their patient to the nearest hospital. Wrong. If the ambulance is operated by one of the city's private hospitals, Lenox Hill Hospital, for example, you could end up there no matter how many hospitals are closer. Why?
Cherry picking. Picking the best of the batch.
The union that represents most city emergency medical service workers is up in arms over evidence it discovered indicating that private hospitals like Lenox Hill are acting like medical bounty hunters, scooping up the paying patients, those with insurance, and dumping the rest on the city hospitals.
It's grave robbing, I mean, in the modern sense, because they're taking from people's insurance companies whatever they can get.
Take the case of 92-year-old Julia Miranda, a West 93rd Street resident whose family called 911 because she was having trouble breathing. A Lenox Hill ambulance picked her up and then took her all the way across town to Lenox Hill. The frightening part is that Julia's family asked to go either to St. Luke's or Roosevelt Hospital, both conveniently on the west side, both conveniently closer.
I wanted them to take her to the closest hospital because, you know, she wasn't feeling that well. I don't know why the long ride across town, but, you know, I got no choice, you know. It was their choice.
But Lenox Hill says their hospital was her choice. The paramedics filed papers saying she wanted to be taken to their facility.
And it's marked as patient choice.
Definitely a lie. There's no question about that. They did not ask her.
The paramedics told the family that St. Luke's, where Julia's doctors and records are, was full, not accepting any more patients that morning. But Channel 2 News called St. Luke's, and guess what? They were not diverting patients to other hospitals that morning.
If they don't do something, one day they're going to bypass a hospital, and someone may stop breathing en route to a hospital. And they should have gone to a closer facility.
And the union says there are lots of other examples where private hospitals operate their ambulances for financial gain. And while Lenox Hill says it doesn't apply to them, well, maybe they ought to take another look at their records. In Manhattan, I'm Marcia Kramer, Channel 2 News.
Lenox Hill Hospital is taking a closer look at their records tonight. They told us their preliminary investigation indicates they honored Ms. Miranda's request, but they'll continue to review the incident. Meanwhile, city EMS officials told us they're very interested in seeing those results.
Lenox Hill Hospital may be taking dangerous advantage of some patients. Lynn White is in the newsroom with the story. Lynn?
Well, George, the Daily News does report that paramedics from Lenox Hill Hospital are bypassing nearby hospitals to take patients to Lenox Hill. In one case, a Lenox Hill ambulance reportedly picked up an accident victim right outside the city-run Metropolitan Hospital and hauled that patient 20 blocks away to Lenox Hill. The paper found 56 cases of steering in 2 weeks. EMS is now launching an investigation.
Once that investigation is completed, we will look at the facts and the conclusions of the investigation and take the appropriate action.
Well, Lenox Hill denies that it is targeting patients with insurance to recruit business. Back to you, George.
Okay, Lynn, thank you very much.
It's the charge against drivers for Lenox Hill Hospital ambulances, workers zooming sick people who can afford to pay their hospital bills up to Lenox Hill, many times racing right past closer hospitals. Wallet biopsies can mean big bucks for hospitals and private ambulance companies. The Daily News reports it happened more than 50 times in a 2-week period. To combat the practice, starting Friday, patient requests for hospitals other than the closest must now be made in writing.
It's going to cost you a lot more. Susan Keller explains why.
Woodstock 69 was free love, no worries, mud fights, and mellow drugs. But these are the 90s. The buzzwords are safe sex, sunblock, and no booze for ticket holders like Tom Burke.
When I hear they say bring your condoms, you can't bring beer.
And be prepared for the great outdoors. At stores like Eastern Mountain Sports, there's already a run on bug spray and tent rentals. People heading to Woodstock 94 this weekend are finding there's nothing free about it, and it's not cheap at all. By the time they've purchased the tent, the backpack, the water bottle, and the bug spray, they've spent a good $300 or $400 just to rough it in the woods for 2 or 3 days. The top-selling items include water bottles, tents, and lanterns. Concert organizers have outlawed metal tent spikes for safety reasons.
They're afraid of violence and people hurting each other if anything gets out of control.
And if violence isn't sign enough of the 90s, EMS technicians are prepared for yesterday's hippies being today's cardiac patients at this year's Woodstock.
You have to worry about heart conditions and any other number of medical emergencies that go along with middle age.
Back then, marijuana was the drug of choice, but heroin has made a scary comeback and could present problems at Woodstock 94.
Usually, persons that overdose on heroin, we find not breathing when we get to them.
With its boot camp-like regulations, concertgoers can only hope Woodstock 94 will rival its predecessor, if only in spirit. In Manhattan, I'm Susan Kelleher, Fox News.